Everyone in Seoul knew one name. Joon Seo-Hyun. A billionaire, the youngest chairman in the country, the man newspapers called the Cold King. He built an empire before turning 35. He never smiled, never attended parties, never dated, never gave interviews. People feared disappointing him. Employees whispered whenever his elevator doors opened. But no one knew the truth. Every night, when he returned to his enormous mansion, he removed his expensive watch, loosened his tie, walked into a quiet bedroom, and sat beside a framed photograph. A woman smiled back at him from the picture. His late wife. She had died 4 years earlier after a sudden illness. Since then, he had lived only for two things: his company and his son. Unfortunately, he was failing at the second one. A soft voice came from the doorway. A little boy wearing dinosaur pajamas rubbed his sleepy eyes. His name was Eli. 8 years old, curious, funny, far wiser than most adults. I waited for dinner. Seo-Hyun looked at the untouched food on the table. It was nearly midnight. I'm sorry. I had meetings. You said that yesterday. And the day before. And last week. Seo-Hyun had no answer. He simply knelt down. I'm trying to build your future. Eli looked at him quietly. I don't want a bigger future. I just want more time with my dad. Those words hit harder than any business failure. But before Seo-Hyun could respond, his phone rang. Another emergency meeting, another investor, another crisis. He kissed Eli's forehead. I'll make it up to you. Then he left again. Eli watched the front door close. The mansion became silent. Han gently placed a blanket around his shoulders. He loves you very much. Eli nodded. I know. Then why is he always lonely? Mrs. Han looked surprised. What do you mean? My dad laughs whenever he watches videos of Mom. He smiles whenever he talks about her. But when she's gone, his eyes become empty. The old woman couldn't answer. After a long silence, Eli whispered something that changed everything. My dad doesn't need another company. He needs someone to love again. The next morning, Eli packed a tiny backpack. Inside, a notebook, colored pencils, a juice box, and one photograph. It was the only picture he had of his parents smiling together. He looked at it carefully. If I can find someone who makes Daddy smile like this again, our family can be happy. There was just one small problem. His father had bodyguards everywhere. Eli had spent years watching them. He knew exactly when they changed shifts, exactly which cameras had blind spots, exactly which delivery entrance was never locked before 9 o'clock. 10 minutes later, a tiny boy wearing an oversized janitor's uniform pushed a cleaning cart into his father's headquarters. No one noticed him. Adults rarely notice children, especially when they're dressed like workers. Perfect. Mission: find a wife for Dad. Rule number 1: pretty wasn't enough. Rule number 2: rich didn't matter. Rule number 3: she had to be kind when nobody was watching. His first interview lasted 30 seconds. A fashionable woman yelled at a receptionist. Rejected. The second candidate ignored an elderly security guard struggling with boxes. Rejected. The third secretly mocked another employee. Rejected. Eli crossed another name off his notebook. This is harder than I thought. Then, something unexpected happened. A loud crash echoed through the employee cafeteria. Coffee spilled everywhere. People groaned. Several workers simply walked around the mess. But one woman immediately knelt down. Are you okay? She helped the trembling cleaner to her feet. It's only coffee. Don't cry. We'll clean it together. She smiled so warmly. Even the frightened cleaner started smiling. Eli stared without blinking. The woman wasn't trying to impress anyone. Nobody important was watching. She simply chose kindness. Interesting. Very interesting. He slowly opened his notebook and wrote one name. Zuri Adeyemi. New employee. Marketing department. African. Beautiful smile. Kind heart. Possible mommy candidate. He had no idea that in less than 1 hour, she would accidentally walk into his father's office and turn the cold king of Seoul's perfectly controlled life completely upside down. He looked up again. She was still helping the elderly cleaner wipe coffee off the floor. "You really don't have to help me, Miss Zuri," the cleaner said, embarrassed. Zuri smiled. "My grandmother always said that kindness isn't something you schedule. It's something you choose." The cleaner's eyes became watery. "Thank you." Eli secretly gave her another point. "Loves elderly people. Excellent." As Zuri stood up, she noticed the tiny janitor staring at her. She laughed softly. "Well, hello there. Were you inspecting my cleaning skills?" Eli almost panicked. "No. Maybe." Zuri chuckled. "That's fair." She reached into her lunch bag and pulled out a chocolate chip cookie. "I baked too many this morning. Would you like one?" Eli blinked. "You made these yourself?" "I did. My neighbors say they're dangerous. People keep asking for more." Eli accepted the cookie with both hands. It was warm, soft, and somehow tasted exactly like happiness. His eyes widened. "You look surprised," Zuri teased. "It's the best cookie I've ever eaten." She smiled proudly. "I'll take that as a compliment." Eli quickly wrote another note. "Can cook. Very important." Just then a loud voice interrupted them. "Miss Adeyemi." A sharply dressed manager stormed into the cafeteria. "There you are. The chairman's presentation files are missing. I need someone to take these revised documents to the executive floor immediately." Zuri looked confused. "Today is my first week. I've never even been upstairs. Neither has anyone else from your department." The manager sighed impatiently. "Everyone else is busy. Please." She nodded politely. "Of course." As she walked away carrying the folder, Eli's eyes sparkled. This was perfect. If she was going upstairs, she was going to meet Daddy. His mission was working faster than expected. Without thinking, he quietly followed her. Neither of them noticed another pair of eyes watching from the hallway. Mrs. Han, the family housekeeper. She had come to deliver homemade soup for Chairman Seo-Hyun. The moment she saw Eli in a janitor's uniform, her jaw nearly dropped. "Oh no," she whispered. "Young master, what are you doing now?" Before she could stop him, the elevator doors closed, going straight to the executive floor. The top floor was unlike the rest of the building. The carpets were thicker. The hallways were silent. Even the air felt expensive. Zuri took a deep breath. "Okay. Just deliver the files. Smile. And don't embarrass yourself." She knocked gently. A voice answered immediately. "Come in." She pushed the door open. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Bookshelves stretched across one wall. Modern artwork decorated another. Behind a sleek black desk sat Chairman Joon Seo-Hyun. He didn't look up. "Leave the documents." His eyes remained fixed on his laptop. Zuri placed the folder neatly on his desk. "The revised presentation, sir." No response. She turned to leave. Then, she noticed something strange. A framed family photograph had fallen face down beside the bookshelf. The glass had cracked. She glanced at the chairman. He was too focused on his meeting notes to notice. Quietly, she walked over, picked up the photograph carefully, wiped away the dust with her handkerchief, and placed it safely back on the shelf. She smiled at the picture for a second. "What a beautiful family," she whispered it so softly. She didn't think anyone heard. But Seo-Hyun did. His fingers froze above the keyboard. Slowly, for the first time since she entered, he looked up. Their eyes met. For one brief moment, neither of them spoke. There was something different about her. She hadn't touched the photograph because it belonged to the chairman. She touched it because she respected someone's memories. "Thank you," he said quietly. Zuri blinked. "For what, sir?" "The photograph." She smiled gently. "It looked important." "It is." There was another long silence. Then she bowed politely. "I hope you have a good day, Chairman." She turned and walked out. The office became quiet again. Seo-Hyun stared at the closed door, longer than he expected. He didn't even know her name. Yet somehow, the room felt less empty after she left. Eli had watched everything through the small glass panel beside the office door. He pumped his tiny fist into the air. Yes! Daddy talked to her. Mission progress. Just as he celebrated, A deep voice echoed behind him. Eli. The little boy froze. Slowly, he turned around. Standing at the end of the hallway were 6 security guards. Mrs. Han, the company secretary, and in the middle of them, Chairman Joon Seo-Hyun himself. His arms were folded. His expression was impossible to read. Eli, he repeated calmly. Would you like to explain why my missing son is dressed as a janitor? Eli swallowed hard. His secret mission had just come to an end, or so he thought. Because hidden inside his tiny backpack was the notebook containing the names of every woman he had interviewed, including the one at the very top, Zuri Adeyemi. And if his father opened that notebook, nothing in either of their lives would ever be the same again. Eli's heart pounded so loudly, he was sure everyone could hear it. The hallway fell completely silent. His father stood only a few feet away, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. The security guards waited for an order. No one dared to move. Eli, Chairman Joon Seo-Hyun spoke calmly. Come here. The little boy slowly walked toward him, his oversized janitor's cap slipping over his eyes. Seo-Hyun crouched down and gently adjusted the cap. What were you thinking? Eli looked down at his shoes. I just wanted to help. Help with what? Before Eli could answer, the security chief stepped forward holding a tiny backpack. Sir, we found this. Eli's eyes grew wide. No, he reached for it, but it was too late. Seo-Hyun accepted the backpack. He unzipped it. Inside, a juice box, colored pencils, a few cookies, and a small blue notebook. Eli held his breath. Please don't open it. Please. Seo-Hyun flipped open the first page. His eyebrows slowly pulled together. The page was filled with handwritten names. Each one had a score beside it. Candidate number 1, too rude to waiters, rejected. Candidate number 2, doesn't like children, rejected. Candidate number 3, talks badly about people, rejected. Page after page, different women, different notes, different scores. The hallway became so quiet that even the security guards leaned closer. Then, Seo-Hyun reached the final page. At the top, written in large, careful letters, Candidate number 17, Zuri Adeyemi. Below it, Eli had written, she helped someone when nobody was watching. She shares her food. She respects old people. She smiles with her eyes. Then, at the very bottom, in shaky handwriting, I think mommy would like her. Everything stopped. Seo-Hyun stared at those last 6 words. His breathing became uneven. For the first time in years, the memory of his late wife rushed back with painful clarity. He remembered her laughter, her kindness, the way she always said, the right person is the one who's kind when nobody is looking. Those had been her exact words. Seo-Hyun slowly closed the notebook. He looked at his son. You've been doing all this to find me a wife? Eli nodded nervously. I don't want a new mommy because I forgot mom. I want one because I don't want you to be lonely anymore. The chairman's eyes softened. For several long seconds, he couldn't speak. Then, to everyone's surprise, he pulled Eli into a tight hug. The security guards exchanged shocked glances. None of them had ever seen the chairman hug anyone at work. I'm sorry, Seo-Hyun whispered. So sorry. Eli wrapped his tiny arms around his father. I miss you. I know, I miss you too. Even Mrs. Han quietly wiped away a tear. Meanwhile, completely unaware of what had happened, Zuri was organizing documents in the marketing department. She had barely sat down when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Human Resources. The chairman has requested your presence in the executive conference room at 3 p.m. She froze. The chairman? Her coworker gasped. What did you do? I don't know. Another employee whispered. Nobody gets called by the chairman during their first week. Oh no, you must be in trouble. Zuri's stomach tightened. She replayed the morning over and over in her mind. Did she file something incorrectly? Did she speak out of turn? Did she accidentally break some company rule? By 3 o'clock, she was standing outside the executive conference room. Her palms were sweaty. She knocked gently. Come in. She stepped inside. The room was enormous. At the far end sat Chairman Seo-Hyun. Beside him was Eli. The little boy instantly smiled the moment he saw her. Zuri blinked. It was the tiny janitor. He wasn't wearing a janitor's uniform anymore. He was dressed in an expensive navy suit. Confused, she looked from the boy to the chairman, then back again. Eli gave her a small, guilty wave. Hi, Zuri frowned. What is happening? Seo-Hyun stood. This, he looked at his son before letting out the smallest sigh, is my son. Silence. Zuri's eyes became as wide as saucers. Your son? Son? Eli slowly hid behind his father. I'm sorry. I wasn't really a janitor. I borrowed the uniform. He hesitated. Wanted to know what kind of person you were. Zuri blinked once, twice, then she looked at the chairman, then back at Eli. For a full 5 seconds, no one spoke. Finally, Zuri crossed her arms. So, the 8-year-old interviewed me, without telling me. And now, the chairman is explaining it. Eli slowly nodded. Yes. A long silence filled the room. Then, to both of their surprise, Zuri burst into laughter. Real laughter. The kind that made tears gather in her eyes. I knew something about you was unusual. She looked at Eli. I've never failed an interview conducted by a child before. Eli smiled. You didn't fail. You got the highest score. The smile disappeared from Zuri's face. The highest score? Eli nodded proudly. You came first. Chairman Seo-Hyun immediately closed his eyes. He already knew. His son's next sentence was going to change everything. Eli looked directly at Zuri. His innocent voice echoed across the room. So, will you go on one dinner date with my dad? The room fell into complete silence. Seo-Hyun nearly choked on his own breath. Zuri stood frozen. Neither of them knew how to respond. And Eli simply waited, certain that this was the easiest question in the world. Eli looked from his father to Zuri, waiting patiently for an answer. So, he asked again. Will you have dinner with my dad? Chairman Joon Seo-Hyun wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. For the first time in years, the powerful billionaire had absolutely no idea what to say. He cleared his throat. Eli, I think that's enough. But Dad, no. His voice wasn't angry. It was simply embarrassed. You've already caused Miss Adeyemi enough trouble. Eli lowered his head. Oh, I'm sorry. Zuri looked at the little boy. His cheerful face had disappeared. He looked as though he had just broken something precious. She smiled gently. I don't think your question was rude. Seo-Hyun looked at her in surprise. It wasn't? She shook her head. It was honest. She turned to Eli. But there's something you should know. You can't choose a wife for your father. That's a decision 2 adults have to make together. Eli thought about her words, then nodded slowly. I understand. But, he tilted his head, can I at least choose who deserves a chance? Neither adult knew how to answer that. Finally, they all laughed, even Seo-Hyun. It wasn't a loud laugh. It lasted barely 2 seconds, but it was real. Eli's eyes became as wide as the moon. Dad, you laughed. Seo-Hyun immediately became serious again. I did not. You did. Mrs. Han, who had quietly entered with tea, covered her mouth to hide a smile. It's true, Chairman. I heard it too. Seo-Hyun sighed. I seemed to be surrounded. The atmosphere in the room softened. For the first time. It felt less like a chairman's office, and more like a family sitting together. Later that afternoon, Seo-Hyun personally walked Zuri to the elevator. I'm sorry about today. There really isn't a company policy for situations like this. Zuri laughed. I'd be surprised if there were. They stood in awkward silence. Then Seo-Hyun spoke again. Eli has been through a lot. He lost his mother when he was 4. He smiles often, but he still carries that loss. Zuri nodded quietly. I can tell. He loves you very much. Seo-Hyun looked down. I hope he still does. He does. He just misses you. Those 4 words landed heavily. The elevator doors opened. Before stepping inside, Zuri turned back. LP. I think you're trying your best. But children don't measure love by success. They measure it by time. The doors slowly closed. Seo-Hyun stood there, long after the elevator disappeared. Her words echoed in his mind. Children don't measure love by success. They measure it by time. Tax. That evening, something unusual happened at the mansion. At exactly 6 o'clock, Seo-Hyun walked through the front door. Not midnight, not 10 o'clock. 6. The staff stared in disbelief. Mrs. Han nearly dropped the tray she was carrying. Chairman? Everything all right? He removed his jacket. Where's Eli? In the garden. Seo-Hyun walked outside. There. Eli was sitting beneath a tree, drawing in his notebook. Dad? The little boy looked up in surprise. You're home. I am. So early? Seo-Hyun smiled faintly. I canceled my evening meetings. What? I thought we could have dinner together. For a moment, Eli simply stared. Then he jumped into his father's arms. You really came. I promised I'd make it up to you. That night, for the first time in almost 3 years, father and son ate dinner together. No phones, no assistants, no meetings. Just stories, laughter, and homemade food prepared by Mrs. Han. As they finished dessert, Eli suddenly grinned. So, Seo-Hyun narrowed his eyes. I know that smile. What? You're about to ask me something. Eli nodded innocently. Maybe? What is it? Can Miss Zuri come for dinner one day? Seo-Hyun nearly dropped his glass. Eli, I'm just asking. Before Seo-Hyun could answer, his phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from his executive assistant. Urgent. The international investors have arrived a day early. We need tomorrow's presentation immediately. Seo-Hyun frowned. The presentation isn't finished. The marketing department was still revising the final campaign. His assistant replied almost instantly. Ms. Zuri Adeyemi completed it this evening. Everyone says it's exceptional. Seo-Hyun looked at the message twice. Then a third time. Without realizing it, he smiled. Across the table, Eli caught it. His eyes sparkled. He whispered to himself, that's the second time. Maybe, just maybe, the mission wasn't over after all. Because tomorrow morning, Chairman Joon Seo-Hyun would see Zuri again, not because of his son, not by accident, but because, for the first time in years, he actually wanted to. The next morning, something happened that shocked the entire executive floor. 10 minutes early. His secretary looked at her watch twice. The chairman was never early. He was always exactly on time. Not a minute before, not a minute after. Yet today, he walked straight into the conference room and asked only one question. Has Miss Zuri Adeyemi arrived? The secretary blinked. She should be here any moment, sir. Seo-Hyun simply nodded. I'll wait. Outside the conference room, employees whispered among themselves. Did you hear that? The chairman asked for the new marketing employee. What did she do? No idea. Maybe she's getting promoted. Or fired. Nobody knew. Except one little boy. At the mansion, Eli was getting ready for school. He happily stuffed his lunchbox into his backpack. Mrs. Han smiled. You seem cheerful today. Eli grinned. Dad smiled twice yesterday. Han laughed. I noticed. I think we're making progress. We? Eli covered his mouth. I mean, life. Mrs. Han pretended not to notice. But deep inside, she was praying that little boy's impossible dream might actually come true.
And that's where things took a shocking turn. If you want to see what happens next, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment part 2 below. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.